The snow fell thick and slow over the frontier town of Black Hollow, turning the dirt streets into mud and ice, as if the land itself wanted to bury the cruelty unfolding at its center. The auction platform groaned beneath the weight of desperation. Surrounded by men whose faces had long forgotten mercy, she stood there barefoot despite the cold. A mother of 7, her body thin, her hands trembling not only from fear, but from exhaustion that had hollowed her out over years of hunger and loss. Her name was Eliza May Harper, though no one bothered to ask. Names had no value here. Her children stood beside her in a crooked line, wrapped in rags and patched coats, eyes too old for their young faces, clinging to one another as if the world might tear them apart at any moment. The youngest whimpered softly into her skirt while the eldest boy stood rigid, jaw clenched, trying to look brave for siblings who needed him more than he knew. The auctioneer cleared his throat and announced her fate like a sack of grain. Widow, 7 children, strong enough to work. $300 for the lot. The word struck her chest like a hammer. $300. That was the price placed on her suffering, her love, her years of sacrifice, her children's lives. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some men laughed. Others scoffed. A few calculated usefulness. Eliza lifted her chin not out of courage, but because she refused to let her children see her break. She had already broken in the long nights when she went hungry so they could eat. When she sold her wedding ring for flour. When she buried her husband and prayed to a God who never answered. The bidding crawled forward, cruel and lazy. A rancher shook his head. A merchant complained about mouths to feed. A miner joked instead of offering money. Each rejection burned worse than the cold. Then boots crunched through frozen mud and a man stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. He was tall, broad, wrapped in a fur-lined coat worn thin by years of mountain winters. His dark hair fell loose around a scarred, weather-beaten face, and his eyes were sharp, not kind, not cruel, but honest in a way that unsettled people. The town knew him as Cold Heart, a mountain man who lived beyond the ridge where law faded and winter ruled. Without a word, he dropped a leather pouch onto the table. Silver spilled out, clinking like thunder in the quiet. 300, he said calmly. The gavel fell, sold, the sound echoed like a gunshot. Eliza's breath vanished, sold. The word crushed her chest. She had feared many fates, but this man, this stranger, she could not read. Cold Heart stepped closer, his shadow falling over her and the children. Please, she whispered, voice raw. Whatever you want from me, don't hurt my children. The crowd leaned in, hungry. Instead of answering, Cold Heart knelt, gently adjusted the scarf around the youngest child's neck, then rose and met Eliza's eyes. I didn't buy you to break you, he said. I bought you because I won't watch 7 children freeze to death while men with full bellies laugh. Silence swallowed the street. He turned toward the road and told them they were leaving before dark. Fear and hope twisted together inside. Eliza as she gathered her children and followed him out of Black Hollow, eyes burning into their backs as snow thickened and the town vanished behind them. The wagon carried them into the mountains, into silence, into uncertainty, but also into food, warmth, and the first fragile breath of safety they had known in years. Cold Heart spoke little, worked endlessly, and never once raised his voice. Eliza stayed alert, waiting for the hidden cost of kindness. Days passed. Then weeks. The children laughed again. They learned. They healed. And Eliza began to remember who she was beyond survival. The price finally came when riders from Black Hollow arrived at the edge of the trees, armed and angry, demanding their property back. Cold Heart stood between them with a rifle, but Eliza stepped forward before violence could speak. She told the truth about the auction, about the hunger, about the town that watched her children freeze and did nothing. She told them she would return as a witness, not as property, and spread the story to every trading post and judge willing to listen. Reputation mattered in the West, and fear changed sides. The men retreated. Eliza collapsed only after they were gone, years of pain pouring out at once. Word spread just as she promised. The auctioneer fled. The practice died in whispers. It wasn't justice, but it was change. Eliza didn't stop there. She opened the mountain cabin to others, widows, runaways, orphaned children turning survival into sanctuary. Cold Heart built more beds and said nothing. By spring, the snow melted, and Eliza stood on the ridge watching her children laugh, understanding that she had been sold as a victim but had chosen to become something far more dangerous, a woman who refused to disappear. The West would remember guns and blood, but it would never forget the mother of 7 who turned shame into rebellion and changed the rules simply by standing up and speaking. If this story moved you, if it made you feel the cold, the fear, and the courage of a woman who refused to be erased, then subscribe to the channel now. More powerful, emotional frontier stories are coming, and you won't want to miss the next legend that shook the West.